You are still watching the Polit Bureau. Matume, let me just quickly bring you into this one. And this is, for instance, if you look at the Sunday papers today, at least two papers are running with some stories relating to allegations of corruption, of mismanagement of city funds. And one of those stories is Glad Africa, the consultancy firm that has been appointed by the city of Tshwane. And in one of those articles, it actually states that one consultant can claim up to 4,000 rand per hour.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I've seen the story, and I mean, the DA-led Metro will have to answer that. And look, it does not implicate Solim Simang as mayor directly, but the municipal manager is involved there.
Does it have an impact on the image of the party if the party keeps him there?
Of course. I mean, the party is using the fighting corruption as the ticket, you know, to win the elections next year. And I mean, the same way that they wanted to demonstrate that they are leading Western Cape, you know, efficiently, they want to show with Tshwane to say that South Africans can trust them. They are against corruption. They also want to use Johannesburg to demonstrate that. But when allegations such as this emerges, they
need to be seen to act on it. Actually, in this conversation, let's just quickly bring in Makashu Lagana, member of the provincial legislature of the DA. Makashu Lagana, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Just your quick reaction to this announcement and the decision by the federal executive that instead of having faith in you, expressing faith in you, they've expressed faith in Solim Simang.
Thanks very much, Alvin, and good morning to your viewers. The decision of the leadership of the DA needs to be accepted and respected. As one of the people who are vying for the position, I will be fully behind the premier candidate as announced. My job now is on the ground. You know, I'm going to do what I do best. So I'll continue to be on the ground, working to ensure that the DA wins the Gauteng next year. Are
you disappointed at all?
Not disappointed. You know, when you get into any contest, there are two options or outcomes. But the thing is, we have committed ourselves to work on the ground, and that's something that we are going to do. So I'm as strong and at peace as ever.
Earlier on, just before you joined us, we were speaking about the lead up to the federal executive and, of course, the selection committee having all these interviews. Is that all along we were under the impression, and I believe you as well, you are under the impression that Solim Simanga is behind your campaign. He was even at the launch of your campaign, for that matter. And on the day, the deadline for submissions to make applications to become the provincial nominee for this province, he threw his name in the hat.
You know, Aldrin, every member has got the right to stand for any position. And he put up his name, and the party believed that he's the best candidate to win Gauteng, and we must rally behind his candidature. That's where I am now. I'm more focused on working on the ground and continue to ensure that we are able to win Gauteng.
And what's your relationship with him like after he made that about turn?
The relationship remains as it is. We'll continue to support him in his bid to be the premier, and that's where my task, that's why I want to focus on working on the ground to ensure that our members on the ground do come out in their numbers to support the campaign.
Okay, thank you so much, Makashu Lagana there, member of the provincial legislature in Gauteng of the DA, and of course he was in that race to become the provincial nominee or candidate for the DA in the province. And Matume, just listening to what he has to say there, what do you make of it?
Yeah, no, I think that he's showing maturity there. Yes, he went into this knowing that at the end he might not win, but accepting and declaring that he will be supporting Solly Msimang, I would say that that is a majority. I mean, he says that he will campaign for the party. He will be on the ground from now on. But obviously, he's very disappointed. We know that he really wanted to be the face of the DA in Gauteng. So to have your friend, stealing that from you, it's
that limelight.
Yeah,
Daniel, what's your take on this? Daniel joining us from our Cape Town studio. What's your take on what Makachula Ghana had to say? And it's almost as though that you are speaking about forging unity. You know, we are going into these elections as a united party to try and campaign and ensure that the DA secures a victory.
Yeah, I think that no doubt there are hurt feelings, no doubt that there will be some resentments, because that's what happens in a political party, especially in a very competitive environment. And the DA does have a high degree of competition now within its own ranks. I think it was a reasonable statement coming from him. I think it does show that there's a commitment now to work together with the Premier candidate, Msimanga, right now. And I think it does show that the party perhaps is maturing in a sense that those who feel hard done by, who have lost out, even in difficult circumstances like this, are willing now to pull together. This ultimately is a test of leadership, though, of Maimane. I mean, he's had a number of tests of leadership on all sorts of issues across the country in the last few months or so. The big test of his leadership now across the country, when all of these premier candidates are announced, is to try and motivate the troops and to reduce the ruffled feathers and tensions that might exist. And his leadership has certainly been, I think, in question on many other issues. His leadership, again, will be tested on whether he can bring his party together and unite in a sense of enthusiasm going forward between the winning candidates and the losing candidates, for that matter.
Yeah, and actually another point in this case is the debate around whether the DA has dropped the BBEE policy, or whether the DA supports a certain form of a black empowerment policy. And I see the federal executive has released a statement after the meeting today, after the meeting this weekend, but it does not propose what alternative there should be. It says that this model that the ANC has come with is almost like an apartheid-style model, and that is what they reject, but they do not come up with an alternative. And I guess people like Solly Msimanga, when they go do their door-to-door campaigns, these are some of the questions that they'll be facing.
There are going to be a number of questions on this issue. I think it's risky business, ultimately, for the DA to adjust its policy on an issue as important as black economic empowerment without having a very clear alternative only, let us say, 9 months before an election. This is an issue that largely the ANC owns. The issue of BEE is an issue that is in the ANC narrative that has become part and parcel, whether we like it or not, of all of our narratives within South Africa. So the DA really needed to have a very clear alternative in place before it embarked upon its current critique of BEE. And I think it's good that there's a current critique of the policy. I think it's good that the DA is starting now to look at alternatives. But be very careful, and I'm saying this to the DA, be very careful about adjusting your policy in the midst of an upcoming election campaign where you're going to have your premier candidates and everybody else questioned as to what exactly your policy is. And if there's fudging and general confusion on any aspect of policy, but particularly this issue, then I think the DA can get itself into trouble on the issue. So there's a lot of work for their policy research unit to do to get a clear-cut message across to the candidates and, for that matter, then to the voters of South Africa.
Matume, just quickly before we wrap up, do you think that the DA may also face another hurdle? Let's say, for instance, that Solly Msimanga does become the Premier of Gauteng when the ANC succeeds in amending Section 25 of the Constitution, considering their policy position? Yeah,
look, I mean, the DA is actually in trouble. It's not as easy as it was under former President Jacob Zuma. Now, I mean, Ipsos have also showed that the ANC will perform better here in Gauteng. So you have got a situation where the ANC is also wanting to show that they are radical as the EFF is, and so the DA's position on BEE really, and also on expropriation of land without compensation might be problematic, especially given the fact that the party is targeting black voters.
Yeah, and certainly to increase its majority as well amongst the voters, amongst the electorate. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We have Daniel Silke joining us from Cape Town, as well as Matume Letsoalo. Thank you guys so much for this discussion. We go to a quick ad break and we continue with the Polit Bureau after this.